Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to install an electric fuel pump on your 1985 M1009. Let's get at it. Well guys, it's been a while since I've made a video about old Echo here, and I figured what better time to go ahead and do a video as to whenever I'm throwing an electric fuel pump on here. But let me tell you exactly why I'm throwing a fuel pump on here. So the problem I started having was Echo started to become increasingly difficult to start, and at first I thought it might have been a glow plug issue, but later I realized it was actually a fueling issue. If I let this vehicle set for more than a few hours, the fuel would leak back to the tank, and then before I knew it, it would lose fuel pressure up to the injector pump, and I would have to sit and crank and crank and crank and crank and crank before it would finally build up pressure. What eventually ended up happening, of course, you guessed it, I burnt my starter up. I've got a new starter on now, and it's actually a bigger, beefier version than the one before, and now I'm going to go ahead and slap on an electric fuel pump. Now this pump is just an El Cheapo one. I got it on Amazon for like 26 bucks. I'm not going to be using it as my primary pump. It's really just going to be more of a primer pump. I'm going to be leaving my factory pump on for the time being. And once I go turbo, then the factory pump will be coming off, so that way we can set up the oil lines for the turbo. And then I'll be upgrading this fuel pump to a bigger, more reliable version. But for now, this cheap little Chinese one is going to work just fine. Let's get started. Now, something about this kit that you're going to need to know is it's actually not for an M1009. It's for a 6.5 turbo diesel instead of the 6.2 naturally aspirated. So, it does not have the proper fittings that you'll need in order to hook this setup up. Now, strangely enough, I would assume that it was going to take a 3/8 fuel fitting with a barbed fitting to thread in, and then of course you would have the barbed side to put on your rubber hose here. But for some weird reason, all of the fuel fittings that are 3/8 thread would not thread into this thing, but what did was this 3/8 transcooler fitting. Make it make sense. All I know is this threads into it, whereas the fuel hose didn't, and I don't really care. I can slide the fuel hose onto that, put a clamp on it. It's going to work all in the same, so I don't really care if it says transcooler fitting or not. There's the part number if you need it. I got that at AutoZone for like $4 or $5. Now, when you go to install this, of course, you're going to want to know which way is in and which way is out. This right here will be where the fuel enters, and right here, you'll notice they have it labeled out. So the area that I chose to put this fuel pump or fuel primer system is back here located on the frame, kind of just before you get to the rear axle and back where the tank is. I'll show you now. There it is. So I'm not really sure why there is a little rubber hose section there. I'm assuming maybe there used to be an inline fuel filter there or something. I don't know. All I know is that appeared to me to be the perfect location to go ahead and put this little pickup pump. Now, personally, I am not a fan of these little pinch fittings. I prefer these screw on top or twist on, however you want to put them, and I just feel like they hold a lot better. I used to work at a place called PSI, speed shop, dyno place with Frank Soldiers, and he taught me this little trick right here when you're doing wiring. That way when you're running your wiring, it kind of keeps them together, kind of keeps them the same length, and it just kind of looks a lot cleaner too. Well, there you go, guys. So I went ahead and took that old rubber piece out and got the pump set up here. So now I just need to work on mounting it. Now, I did have to cut a small piece of the fuel line out because obviously this fuel pump system was a lot longer than that section was. You can see here how much that I ended up cutting off. When you go to do something like this, if you go to have to trim some of the line, make sure you don't use any cutters like this because it'll actually pinch the line, and so it'll end up restricting a lot of flow and probably not even seal very well. Make sure you use one of these. It's specifically designed to cut like fuel lines and brake lines and things like that. Here's what you want to use. That way you get a nice, clean, perfect cut. So now that I've got this set up, the pump is ready. I went ahead and got my wires wired up here and ready to go. I just need to focus on getting this mounted to the frame and then running the wires up, and then we should be able to get this thing fired up. Alright guys, and then lastly, I've got it wired up to a toggle switch. It's of course going to set up with a relay and everything. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I didn't test the theory. I guess I probably should have. But supposedly, these style of fuel pumps, if you get the wires mixed up, then it'll pump backwards. So I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, it would make a lot of sense that whenever you hook it up, to have someone hop in, flip the toggle switch, and make sure that it's pumping fuel out in the correct direction before you finish bolting everything down and getting everything tightened up and locked into place. Because the last thing you want to do is sit up here and, you know, crank and crank and crank and wonder why it's still not working because it's actually pushing fuel back to the tank. That would suck. But anyways, we just fired the truck up. Everything's running good. So that's it. That solved the problem. That's exactly what the truck's problem was. So obviously, somewhere in the fuel system, we had a micro air leak, and it was allowing fuel to back itself, drain back to the tank. But now with this little lift pump, I just simply flip the switch. It feeds the factory mechanical fuel pump up here, and then everything's good to go. So, all right, guys, I hope that helps. If you guys have any questions on like how to wire up like a relay or anything like that, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make a video on that. So we'll catch you guys later. Thanks for watching.